Welcome to the Undisputed podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Taft. This podcast is the full show from today's episode of Undisputed from start to finish. They've got a busy slate, so skip Shannon. Let's get to it.
Good morning. Welcome to Undisputed. We are live alongside Skip, Bayless, Shannon, Sharpe. We are so good to have you.
There are so many Cowboy fans here today. Wait. It's starting to feel like the Cowboys are playing in this Super Bowl, right? Yes, it does.
I'm glad that's only a feeling because it's not reality.
Welcome, Miami. We love you.
Show in store. Here's the thing. Snoop Dogg will be here later. Cannot wait to talk to him. We also have Browns receiver Jarvis Landry will be joining us, and plenty to talk about there, but we are going to start by talking about that young QB, Patrick Mahomes, and the Chiefs. They are 1.5-point favorites over the Niners, according to Fox Bet. And Mahomes failed to make the Super Bowl last season with home field advantage and now finds himself as the favorite to win it all. So Shannon, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much pressure is Patrick Mahomes on this week?
Well, he's on a 10, but before I start, Skip, I'm not trying to be cool. I have progressive glasses, and so if I go out in the sun, they get dark. And when I come inside, they're supposed to lighten back up. Because the lights are so bright, it still looks like I have on sunglasses, but these are actually seeing glasses. So I ain't trying to be cool, even though I am cool.
I like them. I think it's a good look.
Somebody just tried a humble brag because somebody is trying to be cool. And it's okay with me. You can wear your sunglasses.
Okay. Skip, it's a 10 because he's the best player on either side in the Super Bowl, and he plays quarterback. And there's no way Jimmy Garoppolo has a run game he can fall back on. They have an outstanding defense that they can win the game that way. We all know, unless Patrick Mahomes plays like he's played in every playoff game that he's ever played, they're not winning this game. There's tons of pressure on him. He was an MVP. He came back after missing 2.5 games, and he's played unbelievable. You look at what he's done in the playoffs, he's played unbelievable. Skip, and I know it's a small sample size, but in 4 playoff games, he's never scored less than 31 points. So that's the measuring. If you look at their defense and the way they play, they've given up 41 points in the first half. They've given up 14 in the second half. What's different? Once their offense gets going and gets the lead, now their defense can tee off because it takes the running element out of it. I don't think they're very good against the run. They can get after your quarterback, Skip, but as long as the quarterback has to throw the football and there's no threat of the run game. So there's a ton of pressure on Patrick Mahomes because he knows if I don't do 300, if I don't play lights out football, we're not winning. I don't know if anybody knows this, but Patrick Mahomes in the 2 playoff games, he's their leading rusher. Damian Williams in the playoffs, 29 carries, 92 yards, 3.2 a carry. That won't get it done. They can't win with the running game. 49ers can, but Jimmy Garoppolo has shown you flashes where he can throw for 400. He can throw for the high 380s, 3 or 4 touchdowns. Have we seen the Kansas City Chiefs running game win a ball game when Patrick Mahomes doesn't have it going? Have we seen their defense just like, you know what, we're going to lock it down today? That's not how they're going to win this game. So all the pressure is really on Patrick Mahomes because Jimmy G knows I threw 8 passes in one game. I threw only 2 in the second half, and we still won the ball game going away. So he knows he has a defense and a running game he can fall back on. Patrick Mahomes has no such luxury. So it's at a 10, but if there's anybody that can handle that pressure, my homeboy got this.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a first on Undisputed. Shannon Sharpe was actually objective about the player he calls my homeboy, because I thought you'd say the pressure on him was like a 1.
Oh, no.
Because he can handle any kind of pressure.
No.
Shannon Sharpe just went to 10 on the scale of 1 to 10 pressure. I'm going to go you one better. In fact, I'm going to go you 10 better because I think it's a 20. I have never seen anything quite like what is happening this week here in Miami. I'm actually starting to feel sorry for your homeboy. And by the way, you are the igniter and originator of a lot of this pressure because you have been driving his bandwagon all the way to Miami all year, except there were a few weeks when you took off those few weeks because he did lose back-to-back home games at one point during the season. My homeboy losing at home.
That's all right.
Oh, okay.
Temporary
Interesting.
setback.
So here's my takeaway from this whole idea. I've covered a whole bunch of Super Bowls in my day. In fact, my first Super Bowl, now that I think about it, was Super Bowl 10 right here in Miami, and it was the first Dallas-Pittsburgh Super Bowl, and it was a low-scoring game won by the Steelers. Remember a little receiver named Golden Richards?
I did.
Mel Blount put him in the hospital. So I go way back, so I have pretty good perspective historically on this. Patrick Mahomes is being treated with more reverence and being more hyped than Tom Brady was before any of his 9 Super Bowls. Trust me on this. I'm hearing more Mahomes this week than I heard at any of the other Brady Super Bowls, 9 of them, dating all the way back to the Rams Super Bowl that they broke through and won with the Vinatieri 49-yard field goal. Obviously, that was Tom's first year of starting. But then against Carolina, he was starting to become the man. I didn't hear any of this. And then there was a little drought in there, and then here we went again. 9 times I've covered Tom Brady's Super Bowls in which I didn't hear any of this kind of reverence, this kind of stature accorded a kid who, by the way, has won exactly nothing yet. Nothing.
Let me ask you a question. In Tom Brady's first Super Bowl, do you believe Patrick Mahomes can win this game if he throws only 1 touchdown pass in the Super Bowl? Do you believe he can win? Because that's what Tom Brady did. Tom Brady won a Super Bowl in which he threw 1 touchdown.
They were 17-point underdogs, I believe. So they were prohibitive dogs in the game.
So are you saying Tom Brady's first Super Bowl, he was the equivalent player of Patrick Mahomes in his first?
Obviously not.
So you understand why the pressure is here.
This is not Patrick Mahomes' first year of starting, right?
This is his first Super Bowl.
Okay, I got you. But let's look back at what started to unfold this week. Let's go back to Super Bowl opening Monday night, live on NFL Network and on FS1. But what did I hear our man Deion Sanders, who sat right there to open the show yesterday, Hall of Famer, greatest cornerback ever. He referred to Patrick Mahomes on opening night as the master of ceremonies.
Everybody needs one of those.
He's nothing. He's the master of ceremonies. Then I heard our man Michael Irvin, who sat right there yesterday, just lit this stage up.
Yes, he did.
Hall of Famer. To me, the greatest receiver who ever played. The guy I wanted in my foxhole in Philly and New York and Washington. I heard Michael Irvin call him Mr. Mahomes. Mr. Mahomes from Michael Irvin? Are you kidding me? And then I heard his teammate, Travis Kelce, call him Showtime Mahomes, which is right in the same category you put him in, right? It's Showtime. And I'll give you Showtime because he is the most entertaining player in the National Football League right now, right? And that's the only reason we're all really looking forward to this. That's the tangible reason. That's the reason you can take to the bank is that he is entertaining, but as far as reverence, for what? So I'm looking at stories now on the internet. Maybe it's just a runaway train on the internet. They're referring to Patrick Mahomes as the Michael Jordan of the National Football League. And so I'm going, wait a second, Patrick Jordan? And the premise is Patrick Jordan doesn't have, sadly, a rival, a clear-cut rival, the way Jordan never had a clear-cut rival. And I'm thinking, well, wait a second, he's won none. I mean, Jordan started winning. He won 6 times with 6 MVPs in the finals. And this kid, wait a second, he doesn't have a rival? Well, is he the runaway MVP for this year? No, wait, it's Lamar Jackson. Does that qualify as a rival?
It would have been interesting had he not gotten hurt.
Okay, but Lamar was going to lap him anyway.
I don't know about all that.
Yes, he was. Lamar was extraordinary this year. Like from the start. Ravens. Go Ravens. Way to go. and then Russell Wilson, 2/3 of the way through the year, you were still fighting for Russell Wilson to be the MVP of this league. And he was extraordinary this year. They both had better performance years than Patrick Mahomes did. Patrick Mahomes won the MVP a year ago, and then he wasn't quite. He was very good this year, but he wasn't quite as good as he was a year ago. Am I right?
Yeah.
And I even made the case yesterday, and you laughed at me and scoffed at me as always. Dak Prescott actually performed better. He did. I made the case and I closed the case, and I'm not going to reopen the case today because the gory details are too much for you to stomach at this hour.
I don't know what kind of performance Dak was doing, but it was nothing he did at the quarterback position was better.
I didn't say he's better than Mahomes. I just said I showed you in every category, Dak did this and Mahomes did that.
Except the category that counts the most.
This and that.
Dubs.
Huh? Okay.
Dubs.
Okay, I got it. Well, speaking of dubs.
Yes.
Kansas City went 12-4. They're not 16-0. If you gave me 16-0, I'd say, wow, this kid he's on the brink, man. This is, because this coronation week would feel more legit if they were 16-0, but they're not.
But here's the thing, Skip. I think what has happened is that if you go back, let's go back to a guy that had this kind of success in his first couple of years. You look at Dan Marino. Dan Marino in his Super Bowl, who is he going against? Joe Montana, who had already won. So you can't say he's head over heels better than Joe. Joe had already had one. You look at Patrick Mahomes.
Okay, time out. Dan Marino, I know some of our audience isn't old enough to even remember this. God bless you, but the point is, Dan Marino, right out of the box, was better than Patrick Mahomes. He was just off the chart. We'd never seen anything like it. I'm talking about the first year he was better. Without the weapons Patrick Mahomes has. He had Duper and Clayton.
Right.
But this is like a track team.
Dan only started 10 games his rookie year. And then his second year.
Yeah, those 10, they're like, whoa.
Yeah, he was special. But Skip, look, just like the Dolphins in 84, they had to rely on Dan. If Dan didn't play unbelievable, if he wasn't the MVP, they weren't winning because they didn't have the defense and they didn't have the run game.
Nope.
The same thing with Mahomes. But what on the other side is Jimmy G. There's nothing comparable about Jimmy G to Patrick Mahomes.
Nope.
You couldn't say that about Joe Montana to Dan Marino because he had already run a Super Bowl. He was already MVP. So he had that on his resume. This is such a big gap. I don't know if we've seen a gap like this, Skip, as far as quarterback to quarterback in a Super Bowl. When's the last time we saw a gap like this?
Okay, time out on the Jimmy G point. You were the one who kept beating the drum on the other side of the table for Jimmy G to replace Tom Brady. And you said that there was a big mistake made there 2 years ago.
Yes.
They should have gone forward with Jimmy G.
Yes.
And now you're saying Jimmy G isn't even in the same league with Patrick Mahomes. Well, 2 + 2 don't equal 4.
They do, because Coach Belichick is sitting back at home while Jimmy G, the guy he wanted, is here.
And
he said,
Jimmy G is seen as the weakest link in this Super Bowl, right?
Look, he's not going to be asked to do if they ask him to throw the ball 25 times, 30 times, could he do that and they win the game? Yes. Kyle Shanahan wants to make this my running game versus Patrick Mahomes. You lose if you make it Jimmy G versus Patrick Mahomes.
Kyle Shanahan's goal on Sunday is to throw 0 passes. That seriously.
Well,
if he could win the game throwing 0, he would do it right now. He would take that because he doesn't trust Jimmy G any more than you do in your heart of hearts.
I believe he does trust him. But Skip, if I can just turn around and hand the ball off like Tennessee did against the Ravens, against the Patriots, why would I do anything else? Did you see what they did against Green Bay? They were getting 7, 8, 10. I mean, Mostert was getting a first down every time he touched the ball.
Yep.
So why would I want to throw it?
285 yards rushing.
Yes.
That's what Patrick Mahomes is up against.
Yes.
And by the way, the runaway MVP of Super Bowl week, the master of ceremonies, his team has one of the closest point spreads in the history of the Super Bowl.
Yes.
This is by 1.5 points.
Right.
It could go down.
It
could be the closest point spread in the history of the Super Bowl.
Might even be pick'em by game time.
The master of ceremonies is up against it. So why should we crown him before he actually earns the crown?
We're not going to crown him, but it just goes to the respect that Vegas has for the 49ers ball club. As great as Patrick Mahomes, think about it, in 4 games, he's never turned the football over. He's 11-0, averaging 297 yards a game, passing the football.
Okay, but think about what just happened. Think about the breaks that Mahomes and company just got. The New England Patriots looked like they had wrapped up the 2 seed.
Right.
And all they had to do was, we have some Dolphin fans. I know we got one right there. We got some Dolphin fans here. There's a Marino jersey. Way to go.
Yes.
That's a throwback. Way
It's
to
still
go.
the best-selling Dolphin jersey.
Thank you. The Miami Dolphins went up to New England in the regular season finale and beat them and knocked them out of the
they did, Joe.
Way to go.
Yeah.
It was the most shocking upset of the year to me. And then the Titans started topping that because then they went up to Foxborough and they knocked off what was left of the Patriots. And then in a bigger shocker of shocks, the same Titans go to Baltimore and knock out the team that we thought was just the prohibitive favorite to be here this week and be favored in this Super Bowl.
Right.
And all of a sudden, my homeboy winds up at home by luck, huge breaks. He's at home and he gets to play the 10-6 Texans at home, and then he gets to play the 9-7 Titans at home.
Right.
Crown him for what?
Whoa.
Okay, and I get you, he hasn't turned the ball over, but two things happened in those games that are not good signs going into this game. They fell behind by 24-0 to the Texans, and God bless them, they roared back, and he was off the charts. And then they fell behind 17-7 at home to the Titans.
Yeah.
And God bless him, he roared back and he looked all world in that game. But now you're facing a real football team.
Yeah.
This team
Those are real football.
they can run it down your throat. And this team has not one or two, it has 5 pass rushers who are all studs.
They are.
They can bring it.
They can get after your quarterback.
So all of a sudden, poor Mahomes boy is up against a force here that he has not had to deal with before.
But flip this around. Now let the other guy that was in Foxborough. Now, he had a golden opportunity, like you said. He was at home for little Miami. Miami down here in the warm weather. They got to go to the cold in New England and beat the brakes off them. Now, what happened? You guys had an opportunity.
Thank you for bringing that up because...
But that was Coach Belichick's fault, guys, so you know.
Last week, a little guy named Julian Edelman, he's about 5'11", 200 pounds. He was all Tom Brady had this year. He was his #1 target by far, and his only target, he had shoulder surgery. So he's playing with something really bad in his shoulder.
Are we sure he heard that shoulder falling off the car in Beverly Hills?
I don't know. Maybe.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry.
Maybe. That strong drink, that drink will do stuff to you, right? It'll make you act crazy.
It will.
Yeah. So that guy also had some sort of knee that might need to get scoped. I don't know. And he had a fractured rib at midyear. He was a shell of himself. Brady had nobody who could separate. They couldn't protect him. And Belichick's defense allowed Ryan Fitzpatrick to go 80 yards in 12 plays to win the game with a touchdown in Foxborough in the last minute.
But you know,
how can you do that? Way to go, Belichick.
This is what I can't understand. After the defense had given up 14 basically all year long, the one time they give up 17, Tom Brady throws a pick six, they don't win. The defense holds Tennessee to 14 points. Tom Brady throws a pick six, they lose. That's Coach Belichick's defense fault? How?
So I'm glad you brought up Tom Brady because back to how reverential the treatment is of Patrick Mahomes this week. Think about Tom Brady coming to Super Bowl.
Yes.
And there's always a lot of straight Brady hate out there. For whatever, people are jealous. They just get sick and tired of him. I get all that. But just for the record, Tom Brady has completed 256 passes in Super Bowl games, and Peyton Manning is second on the list with 103. Think about the gap. Think about that. Listen to this. Tom Brady has completed 1,700 yards of passes in Super Bowl games, and he's completed 1,700 more yards of passing than Kurt Warner has, who's second on the list.
Right.
I can do touchdowns. He's got 7 more than Joe Montana. Every Super Bowl record, Brady just has run away with all of it, and nobody cares.
But here's the thing, Skip. Most of the time that when teams come to the Super Bowls, they can beat you a multitudes of ways. They can beat you defensively, or they can beat you running the football. They can beat you throwing it, or they can play. Look at Seattle, the Legion of Boom. They can shut you down or beast mode before Russell became the Russell. They can run it down your throat. Tom Brady, we knew Coach Belichick's defense, with the exception of one game, was probably going to play lights out. Tom Brady can beat you. So they can beat you a multitude of ways. Yeah. We know there's only one way Kansas City's winning this ball game. They're not shutting the 49ers down. They're not holding the 49ers to 10 points. They're not holding the 49ers to 14 points. The only way they're going to win this game, Patrick Mahomes is going to have to be what I think, and a lot of people think he is, the best quarterback in football. So unless he's that, they're not winning. That's why the reverence is so great on him, because we've never seen anything like this, Skip. We knew in order for us to win the ball game, we had, even though John was in his later, he was still John Elway. But we needed TD to run the football. Now, the next year we come back in Super Bowl 33.
He was better.
Dan Reed says, we're not letting TD beat, we're not letting Terrell Davis. John throws for 336 and he wins the Super Bowl MVP. Do you actually believe Damian Williams can run for 150 yards against the 49ers and win? No. So it's either Mahomes boy or nothing.
Have you ever seen a greater group of weapons than the Chiefs have? A greater contingent of weapons. I don't think you ever have.
Skip. Military-grade machinery does you no good if you don't have anybody that can pull the trigger correctly. And that's what they got.
Thank you for bringing that up, because you always say Patrick Mahomes is becoming the greatest thrower of the football ever. You're talking about like trick shots. You're talking about no looks,
over under, how many no looks in the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Over under 1.5 no look passes in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. 1.5?
Yeah.
Well, I'll take the over in that. I think we'll see 8 of them, right? Because this is his showcase. He's the master of ceremonies, right?
Only if it's necessary.
Okay. So, but you're talking about the entertainment value, and I'm talking about actually being able to play the position and make the throws under the greatest fire there is, which is the Super Bowl fire.
Yes.
The greatest thrower of the football ever was Tom Brady, and is Tom Brady.
Stop playing.
What do you mean stop playing? You stop playing. Start playing.
No.
You got to start. Who has made all the greatest throws under pressure you've ever seen? Who has won 6 Super Bowls with 6 game-winning drives in the fourth quarter? Tom Brady. That's what's called throwing the football. That's called decision-making, accuracy, touch. It's throwing catchable footballs, and nobody has done it better than Tom Brady.
I just want to know.
But he's not the greatest thrower of the football.
I just want to know what we're going to do about Vinatieri and Malcolm Butler. What role did they play in any of these Super Bowls?
You know how much I hate field goal kicking. I'd like to eliminate it, but it's part of the rules of the game. You get to do that.
Okay, then.
But it takes. Wait, hold on. Did Vinatieri complete 5 straight passes to set himself up for the game-winning field goal?
You see what you did there?
Well, seriously. Well, did he?
Now, let Adam Vinatieri have missed that field goal. They wouldn't have said anything about Tom Brady going 5 for 5. They just said Adam Vinatieri choked.
Well, I've said it before. He's the greatest clutch kicker ever.
What?
Okay? But Tom Brady, as a first-year starter in the Super Bowl, with John Madden sitting up on the booth saying, they got to shut it down and play for overtime, his coach said, no, it's actually Charlie Weiss, the great Charlie Weiss, who says, no, my kid can do this.
Right.
Bing, bing, bing. 5 straight big completions to set up the 49-yard field goal, and it was extraordinary, and you got to accept it.
Yeah.
He showed you right out of the box, first-year starter, I'm as clutch as they come. And he has been the clutchest player I've ever seen routinely, consistently on the biggest stage in the sport. He just has. I love Michael Jordan, but Jordan didn't have this many opportunities.
You said something before we go to break. You said something about the Chiefs catching a break with N'Keal Harry not getting a touchdown and them tackling.
That's a whole other issue. That was the regular season game.
Which break was bigger? N'Keal Harry not getting a touchdown, Philip Dorsett not getting that pass interference call, or the tuck rule? Which?
Wait, you left out Stephon Gilmore. Quick.
Just imagine if the tuck rule doesn't happen.
It was huge. I was there. I covered the game, and I wrote that it was a snow job robbery of the Raiders. It was the snow job, because remember,
Tom Brady got a break.
It was snowing cats and dogs.
So Tom Brady caught. I just want to hear you say Tom Brady got the break of breaks in NFL history.
Bill Belichick got the break of breaks. He did. Well, he did. Bingo.
Oh, my goodness.
Game over.
Game over.
No mercy.
We are here with a lovely studio audience, and so good to have you guys all watching us today. The Browns ended the season with a 6-10 record, and they parted ways with head coach Freddie Kitchens. Cleveland hired Vikings offensive coordinator Kevin Stefanski to be their new coach, and he will be tasked with getting Baker Mayfield, Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry, and the Browns offense back on track. And joining us now, Browns Pro Bowl receiver Jarvis Landry. Thank you. We're so glad you're here, and I know you're here on behalf of the MSC Foundation and the Super Coral Play campaign. So just first tell us about that.
Just an opportunity for me to, kind of raise awareness about Super Coral and what it means to our environment and to our future.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for being here. I know you've got a lot of questions here.
I do. Mr. Landry, welcome to Undisputed. 6 months ago, we were bullish on your football team. Shannon was driving your bandwagon. I'm a big Baker fan. We thought this is the year you guys are at least going to be a playoff team, if not go deep in the playoffs. And the bottom fell out. And you go 6-10. Baker had a bad year. You had a pretty good year. Nick Chubb actually had a very good year. So what was the main reason that you went 6-10? As you've had time to let it sink in, what exactly happened if you had to put one finger on one issue?
Communication. Communication, it's the biggest thing. You've played the game, and when you don't have everybody on the same page at all times, it can definitely screw a lot of things up. And, I was a part of it. I was a part of it, and you guys saw.
So can we start with Freddie Kitchens? Was it just a bad idea to elevate him? He'd never been close to being a head coach. He'd only been a coordinator for, about half a year?
Yeah.
So was that the start of the undoing of the Browns?
I wouldn't say that. I think the transition that I believe the organization was trying to make from the first year was, I think it was the right thing to do. The relationship that he had formed with Baker. But running a team, it's a lot more than just being personal with one guy.
Correct.
And coaching one guy. And not that he was in over his head or anything like that, but we just couldn't find a way to get on the same page and figure out what our identity was.
Did Freddie ever get on Odell's same page? Because you two guys are very close, obviously. I hope you're still close, because it was a long, hard year.
Yeah.
But you had a few more targets than he did, a few more catches than your man Odell did. Had a little better year than Odell, and across the board, he had career lows in every category. Did it work between you and Odell?
Yeah, it did. It did. And a lot of that played a big part in. What he went through this year was, the injury, the coming into a new team and a new system. A lot of the chemistry that me and Baker had kind of developed the year before. Yeah. So it was kind of easy for him to see my body language and understand when I was coming out of break, and a little bit different for Odell, being that training camp was tougher because he was hurt and we was just trying to manage him to get him to the season.
Right.
So a lot of those things kind of got missing. But, we tried to do our best to make sure that he was able to play. Having him on the field is definitely a big element for our offense. He's a big part of it, and this year we'll see that, I'm sure.
You mentioned Odell, and did he really fully buy into it? Because I think, Odell looks at himself as a mega superstar. And there are not very many mega superstars that's in Cleveland. I think it caught him by surprise, not only that the Giants traded him, you leave New York and go to Cleveland, but they traded him to the Browns. Did he fully embrace that? Because it didn't seem like he was always talking about being somewhere else.
Yeah, it's always a shock, when you just got to pick up and leave a place that you feel like you were going to be at for your entire career. So, it's definitely a tough transition. For myself, it was a tough transition. But I would not say that he was not brought in. He was brought in. He was doing everything on a weekly basis to make sure that he could be able to play on Sunday.
Okay.
And leading guys on and off the field. You look at it off the field this year, he's had a great year, and again, once we get a guy like Odell back healthy, you're gonna see, him doing the things that he's always done.
This is your third head coach in 3 years. You went from Hugh, you went to Freddie, and now you're Stefanski. Mm-hmm. How do you adjust? Now you're about to hear your third message in 3 years.
Just trusting it. I think for me, it was tough again, like I say, with the transition and then with the coaching changes as well. Hugh Jackson is the guy that I definitely respect, and Freddie Kitchens as well. And now having Kevin here and getting a new philosophy, understanding a new offense, it's still going to be tough, but, I'm a competitor. Every time I take the field, I take the field to win, regardless of who's calling the plays, regardless of who's coaching, or who's throwing the ball, or who I'm next to. So my approach will always stay the same, and as long as I have that, I feel confident in myself and my ability that it doesn't matter who the coach is or anything like that.
So I mentioned Baker Mayfield. I remain a big fan. Shannon goes on and off the bandwagon.
Well.
Baker had a rough ride, man. I look at the numbers. He fell to 21st in the league in QBR. His completion percentage was second to last in the league. That's no good. And his touchdown-interception ratio was dead last in the National Football League because it was 22 touchdowns to 21 interceptions. I can't defend any of that. I did think he got a little too Odell conscious, like trying to force balls to Odell, because he obviously loves you and he trusts you, but I got to get the other superstar involved, maybe to a fault. And after a while, he didn't look sure of himself, like he's second guessing every decision. And I don't know what you felt or saw in him, but it just wasn't the same guy we saw as a rookie.
Yeah. Again, communication. You know, a lot of it comes back down to game planning, you know, making sure, you know, I had opportunity to sit with Michael Vick today. And, you know, I know as a quarterback, a lot goes into game planning, you know, that a quarterback feels like he's comfortable with.
Right.
You know, and I don't think that he has as much say-so in that as he had like to, you know, so a lot of the decisions making and things like that and protection, you know, a lot of things, you know, receivers not being in the right spot, you know, I take fault to that as well. You know, there were definitely things and opportunities that I had to make plays or stop defenders from making plays and just quite didn't, you know, so you can't put the sole blame on one person. Obviously, he's going to look at his season that he's had and make the adjustments and make the changes that he needs to make to come back this year and, you know, be the guy that you can defend on the show.
When I look at you guys, I thought you should have played through Nick Chubb because he's having a heck of a year.
Yeah.
And I thought Freddie K, because when you have a quarterback like Baker, you take him #1 overall. You have receivers like yourself who's been a Pro Bowl player. Odell has been a Pro Bowl player. You kind of sometimes you find yourself getting away what you really should do, and you try to spread it around. Well, I got to keep Jarvis. I got to give him his 10 targets. Odell need his 9 to 10 targets. And you miss out on the opportunity to do what Tennessee did, which is ride a horse into the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, I think Nick Chubb has hell of a start to his career, you know, and one of the guys that I admire his hard work and his approach, you know, from even his rookie season. You know, he's been producing since then. I think for us as an offense, again, we didn't really know what our true identity was. We would go into games, you know, this game we want to run the ball 50 times, or this game we want to throw the ball 50 times.
Right.
You know, instead of just doing whatever it took to win.
Right.
You know, and making the in-game adjustments. That's where I say with the communication of coming off the field and saying, Coach, we see this. Coach, they're playing cover 2. They're playing cloud to Odell. I'm getting singled, you know, and being able to make that adjustment on the fly.
Right.
And I didn't think that we did that very well.
Freddie, go ahead, Skip, go ahead.
You guys were featured on Hard Knocks 2 years ago, and you just stopped the show, man. It was Baker's, obviously, rookie camp, but the highlight for me was your tirade in the receivers room against all the receivers who were not practicing because of minor injuries. And I can't quote much of it because it got pretty profane, which was good because I think you got everybody's attention. Did any of that happen behind the scenes this year? Did you take any stands? Did you mount the soapbox in the locker room or in any meeting room this year and read the riot act to your team?
Yeah, I didn't really have to. You know, I think what I said, you know, everybody saw and everybody felt. A lot of our receiver group was still intact from the year before. And, you know, you add another guy, you add Odell Beckham, who has that mentality, who's played through injuries, you know, who's trying to practice through injuries. And, again, we found a way to manage him, found a way to manage myself throughout the season. I played hurt all year as well, you know, and, you know, that's something that when you have a team and are playing in this league, period, you know, it's 100% injury rate. You know, at some point you
better believe it.
You're gonna get hurt, you know, and you know, guys are gonna have to play through it. And it really was just more about creating that mental for everybody to know that, you know, it's gonna take everybody.
What are we missing out on Odell? I mean, I've heard you said it, that he's misunderstood. Odell says people don't understand him. What are we missing out on?
I mean, he's a great person. You know, if you guys ever just, you know, sit down and talk, which I'm sure you have, talk with him, and, you know, maybe at times it's confusing to see, you know, some of the things he do versus the person that you see he really know he is. But, you know, he's a true competitor. You know, he loves his family. He loves, you know, playing this game. You know, he loves inspiring people, you know, and I think for us to this year coming, you know, when we see a healthier, more settled in Odell Beckham, again, you can expect the things that we've always seen from him.
You know Mike Thomas is the only one that can catch all the balls. They got to spread the ball around to some other people. Jay?
Yeah, I mean, you know, what they got going over there, you can't knock it, you can't hit it. You know, Mike is doing his thing.
You know what the difference is between you and Odell? This is my 2 cents from a distance. Your priority is winning. You are driven to win. He is driven to star. Like his stats in the end are slightly more important to him than winning the football game. If both happen at the same time, great.
Right.
But in the end, I believe your heart is in a little better team place than his heart is. And I think it rubs off in the locker room that way. And I thought maybe you would be able to rub off on him because you guys were close going into this new partnership. And I don't think you did. I don't think, because you can't change what he was in New York City, and it's hard to go from the Big Apple to Cleveland, Ohio. Nothing against Cleveland. I love Cleveland, but it's not New York. And he knew it wasn't New York. And I think it was hard for him to say, I'm a superstar in Cleveland, and you were the driving force of the team the year before. And then all of a sudden, Nick Chubb's the new star, and Baker had a lot of star power because he's in like every commercial on TV. So I'm not sure Odell ever got it, that you had the makings. This man thought you had the makings of a playoff team. And somehow it didn't click around Odell because I'm not sure he gets it yet. And I don't even know if you can comment. You probably won't comment on that, but that's my take.
No, I definitely think he gets it. You know, he's definitely a team guy. I think personally, you know, we all, in a sense, you know, we play this game to win, you know, and he's one of those guys that feel like if he gets his numbers, the chances of winning goes up,
right?
Which I agree with. You know, if he gets targets, if he gets his catches, if he gets opportunities to make plays, the chances of us winning, the chances of that being a successful play goes up, you know.
Here's the flip side. That man right there was the flip side of Odell to me, because he realized early on he was the leader of Super Bowl championship teams, but he also knew if he only made one big catch a game, that's the formula. Right. And so, especially when you get to Baltimore, you're big play Shea, but it might be one play Shea.
Right. I give you a prime example. Look at the 49ers.
Yeah.
Emmanuel Sanders is a Pro Bowl receiver in Denver 2 times over.
Yep.
Look at Deebo Samuel, what he could be.
Yep.
They throw 8 passes, but they're in the Super Bowl. You see, they don't value their success or winning through catches. Right. Because sometimes receivers, I've been one, and I've been around a lot of great ones, sometimes they only see their value in catches and yards.
But I think what y'all missing is they're winning. They're in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Right?
You know, and that's the missing piece of this whole thing. You know, we're losing and we're still not getting the touches or the targets. So at that point, at what point do you talk to your coach and say, hey, coach, I would love to be involved this week, or hey, coach, this is what's going on the field. The communication, and then that adjustment doesn't be made. You know, it's frustrating. It's frustrating as a receiver. I know, me personally.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, let me put the shit like this here. How many times did you go, you or Odell went to Freddie K? Coach, they got good secondary. We need to run that ball to Nick Chubb. How many times you or Odell went to Freddie K and said, let's run this thing?
Well, never.
Oh, exactly. You see what I'm talking about now? Hey, you see what I'm talking about, right?
But I say that to say this, right? A lot of play calling, I believe, just playing in 6 years, and I know there's people, you know, you have more experience. There's a lot more experience, you know, around the NFL than I have. But if a team is playing cover 2, then we run the football.
Run them out of it.
If they're playing man-to-man, then, I mean, let your dogs eat.
Okay.
And that's all. That was kind of
But if you play man-to-man, you still can go run the football.
We still can run the football.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if they're loading the box with one safety deep and they're playing man-to-man on the outside with, like you say, 2 Pro Bowl receivers, then what are we waiting for? Why are we playing this game with them? This chess, not checkers.
Okay,
this chess.
But to your point, you were a Dolphin. They still love you, man.
They do, and I love them.
To his point, after the NFC Championship game, Emmanuel Sanders was just crowing about the blocks he threw. He couldn't talk enough about how I got this guy and I got that guy, because they were springing Mostert. It was like big pass plays were run plays, right? And if it's man-to-man, you can just draw a bead on your man. If you know what's coming, man, you can just knock him off his feet.
Yeah.
You can get leverage because you know where you're going and he doesn't. So it's easier to block man-to-man than cover 2, to me.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, too, you think Nick Chubb had his big runs because we wasn't blocking?
Oh, no, I understand. You got to knock people
out. A lot of big runs came from second level, third level blocks.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So we were doing that. You know, it was just also opportunities, you know, that we felt like we had that we didn't take advantage of, or we didn't adjust to throughout a game.
Right.
That wouldn't allow us to, you know, I would say be successful. You know, if we played great on offense, we didn't play great on defense that game. Or we gave up a touchdown on special teams. You know, it's a team game. You know, it's not just about the offense. It's not just about the players that you have on offense.
Okay.
You know, it's about everybody.
So, last question. I mentioned this before. Need your view of this.
Yep.
What was the internal view? I love Baker again, and I loved all of his Progressive insurance commercials, but I'm talking about relentless. And I'm sure he made a ton of money. God bless him for that.
Yep.
But I thought it was just too much too soon, because after a while, your opponents are seeing him in every "This Is My House" commercial. They're like you can't turn on a basketball game without seeing 5 versions of that commercial. Was that too much too soon for a young quarterback?
You know what? I don't think so. You know, I think everybody goes through their life and they're walking their journey a certain way. You know, and that's the path and the way that he chose it to be. But at the end of the day, I ultimately feel like he's always been the type of guy that's, you know, had to prove something. And now he's got another opportunity to do it this year coming up.
Well, he's got a big opportunity.
Yeah, and I'm excited to be a part of it and help him do that.
All right. Good for you.
Good job.
All right, we appreciate you being here, the open and honest conversation.
Yep.
Before you go, though, I want to ask you about what you did at the Pro Bowl and your dodgeball championship, because this was incredible. I'm not sure if everyone saw this performance from you, but can you just take me through the mindset in getting it done?
Yeah, I mean, I played in the Pro Bowl the last, you know, for 5 years, and just had an opportunity to really think about that dodgeball
strategy.
Game. Yeah, strategy. You know,
you weren't dodging. You like, I get more catching the ball.
Exactly. You know, that's what I was born and raised to do, and you know, they kept on throwing it. I kept on catching them.
It looks like a fun experience, and I loved the celebration from all of you guys. Just a light note there, and we appreciate you being here. We're going to be rooting for you and the Browns and wishing you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Enjoy the week.
No mercy.
And welcome back to Miami. Undisputed is live all week. We are so thrilled to be here in this wonderful weather. All these fans, this audience, this setting. It doesn't get any better than this for Super Bowl 54. And there is no denying that Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes may be a coaching quarterback match made in heaven. According to backup QB Matt Moore, Reid and Mahomes geek out over geometry in the film room and also finish each other's sentences. Fox Sports NFL analyst Michael Vick is joining us now. Love having Mike on the show. Thank you for joining us on Undisputed today. You know, I know you know Coach Reid well, but in terms of Patrick Mahomes, how much pressure is he under?
I think there's some pressure for Patrick. I think because, you know, at this junction in Andy's career and everything that he's been through, you know, in regards to trying to win a championship from the Philadelphia days to, you know, his days in Kansas City and getting so close last year, I think the pressure comes with Patrick trying to win this Super Bowl for Andy. So that pressure stems through, you know, that situation. And, you know, Andy Reid probably won't coach as long as Patrick Mahomes is going to play. Probably another 15, 16 years for him, you know, if he's healthy, and he probably will, and he will be. But Andy's not going to coach that long, and I think if Andy gets the Super Bowl right now, the pressure be lifted, he can drop the mic and move on.
Speaking of Andy Reid, take us back, if you will, that summer of 2009. You were released from federal custody, August, highly controversial, and one man said, I want him. I'm going to take a chance. And that was Andy Reid said, I want Michael Vick in Philadelphia. How big a deal was that to you? Was there a moment when you were afraid nobody would take a chance?
Yeah, I was afraid when I thought nobody would want me. I looked at Andy and was saying to myself, why me? You know, he had Donovan McNabb, he had Kevin Cobb, who was a second-round pick. And I couldn't figure out what I could bring to the table for the Philadelphia Eagles, other than going in and being a great teammate, being a great guy in the team, in the film room, in the locker room, and bringing some leadership. But of course, I, approached it with an open mind. Opened up to Andy, he opened up to me, and the first thing he told me was don't screw it up, and that summed everything up for me. I knew what I was up against, and I knew what I had to do, the responsibilities that came with everything.
So describe the Andy Reid that you came to know in 2009.
He was just a warm person when I met him, and we talked. I found out he had a great sense of humor. Easy to make you laugh, very easygoing, easy to talk to. I spent more time talking to Andy Reid than I did with any of my coaches, and at that juncture in my career, I wanted to, kind of soak everything in and take advantage of every opportunity and every moment and every friendship and every relationship. And Andy was a guy that I always leaned on for advice, and it wasn't just always football.
You talk about, and I've never heard anybody have anything bad to say about Andy Reid.
I have never heard one person. And in fact, real quick before you go, Terrell Owens sat in that seat on Monday and said Andy Reid was his favorite coach. Listen, Terrell clashed with every coach who tried to coach him. He rebelled, except, Andy. Okay, go ahead.
He was my brother's offensive coordinator in Green Bay. My brother was the one that told me his name was Red, and so that's why I get the name calling him Red. What is it about him? Because you said he's like warm. He's like almost like a giant teddy bear, like he's everybody's friend. They ask him, well, Andy, what did you do after you won the AFC Championship? Well, I ate a cheeseburger and went to bed. That's Andy Reid.
I think because Andy understands the big picture. He knows that this is just a fraction of what we're trying to accomplish, and there's more out there. But I think his team looks at that and says, we got to be like him. We got to be humble. We got to be respectful of our situation and where we are. And stay on the grind. Don't lose focus. It's a bigger picture.
Right.
And I think Andy sets the tone for the rest of his locker room.
To get back to the game, and we talked about earlier, Skip, and I opened up about the pressure. I don't think there's pressure, and I don't think he'll feel like, oh my goodness, I don't know what I'm going to do from Patrick Mahomes. I think he understands that in order for them to win this game, there's no other way Kansas City can win other than Patrick Mahomes playing unbelievable.
Yeah.
The 49ers can win. They can run the football. They can suffocate you on the defensive side. They can take the ball away. That's not how Kansas City is built. They're built to play with the lead, put pressure on the opposing team's offense, coax them into mistakes. Because if you look at the two playoff games, they've given up 41 points in the first half, 14 points in the second half. What's different? Kansas City has the lead in the second half. And so now they're forcing you to play catch-up.
For the Kansas City Chiefs and the deficit that they created the last two playoff games, it just can't happen.
It better not happen.
And I think Patrick Mahomes and his ability to run the football, which was a big caveat, and the reason why they won those last two games, he took off more in the last two postseason games than he did probably all season long.
Correct.
And it was the deciding factor in the games. It created first downs. It created a touchdown. And they was able to mount the comebacks, keep drives going, and keep the opposition off the field. So, that's what has to happen. They got to stand to their element and not get outside of what the things that they do well.
Now, let's be clear about this. Patrick Mahomes, no Michael Vick when it comes to running the football, though.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Keep that under wraps. Everybody's not like myself or Lamar Jackson with the dynamic speed. Sometimes I think it could be a gift and a curse, and I'd rather see Patrick scramble and throw the long ball than scramble and run.
Back to Andy Reid. I think a lot of people miss the point on this, but Andy has a long history of taking chances on troubled football players.
Right.
And right now, you look on his roster, and he's got Tyreek, LaShawn, Frank Clark, Travis Kelce had issues in college. And Andy, if you know him well, he's a very religious man. I think there's some sort of Father Flanagan in him that he wants to give second chances because he feels like he can reach these players and win with these players.
Yeah.
Did you get that vibe from him?
I got that vibe. And he's a difference maker in life in general. And he's not afraid to take chances. And when most people are, I think that's when he's at his most boldest moments in his life. He has the bravado to take it on. He's not afraid, and that's one thing that he explained to me when he first brought me in. And that's why he said, don't screw it up. You know, I'm sticking my neck out there. And I'm pretty sure he tells every guy that who he's giving a second chance, don't screw it up.
Skip, I think a lot of it has to do with it because he had a son that had issues.
Good point.
And he looks at Mike and he looks at these other guys as if they're his kids.
He lost that.
Right, and he says, you know what? I would want someone to give my son an opportunity, a second chance. So this is what, you know what? I'm gonna do this for you, Mike, but don't mess this up. And I think that's how Andy approaches it. And the little bit I've been around him, like I said, only been around him a handful of times, I think once at the Pro Bowl, and I met his family, but they were very, very young then, Skip. It's hard not to like him because he's so likable. You understand that, you know, he's the coach, he's in charge of everything, but he makes you feel like he's just a guy. Like you can just talk to him like he's a position coach, not a head coach.
I'm gonna tell you when I knew Andy Reid was a man of second chances. Long story short, didn't play a lot in preseason in 2012. Played the Cleveland Browns first week of the season, and I'm just like, okay, this is going to be a performance, a stat game.
Right.
You know, the stat game, you go out and you put up numbers. You know what it's like.
Yeah.
I go out and throw 4 interceptions. Never did, first time ever in my career. Yeah, it was a stat game.
Not a stat game.
Never did that in my career. And he was a man of second chance because I still had my job the next week, so I said I'd like to say that.
Now I'm going to give you the downside to everything we just talked about. There are those around this league for years who have looked at Andy as almost too good to his players, that there's not enough discipline, that it's kind of a loosely run ship, that his teams haven't been in the best shape as the season wore on, that they could just get outworked by the teams who are just in better conditioned teams. As you look back, is there any truth to that? Because Andy in the biggest games has not been the greatest.
From my experience with Andy, he looked for the older guys to be leaders in the locker room. So for me, it was, you know, taking on the responsibility of making sure that Deshaun and Macklin and LaShawn was, you know, always on time or in meetings or training or doing the right things. He put the onus on the older guys, and, you know, that's just a coach, you know, treating his guys as professionals. And I respected that, and I took responsibility for that, and I did it to the best of my ability. You know, but every guy doesn't, you know, gravitate to that, and they don't take that all in. So, yeah, sometimes it could get a little loose, but the last person's bad side you want to be on is Andy Reid, and trust me, he does have a bad side.
Really?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you have an instance of that? Do you remember him losing his temper in the locker room?
Well, he lost his temper with me one time. Well, he lost his temper with Deshaun one day.
Yeah.
And it was really ugly. It was after a Sunday night game, and we had a game on Thursday, and you know, Deshaun never complained about catches or not getting his just due because he was the ultimate team player, but it was some riff, and you know, Andy looked at me, he was like, you better get him. You better get him. So it was my responsibility, but it got out of hand, but it ended, you know, the way it was supposed to, with love.
Hearing you and T.O. speak so glowingly about him, I mean, it's going to stick with me.
Got so much respect for him.
A difference maker in life. That's what I'm going to remember.
He is the ultimate sympathetic figure head coach.
Wow.
And a good
Nobody will be
coach.
unhappy if he loses this game, except maybe 49 fans.
And you've heard Patrick Mahomes say he wants to win it for him. It's been 50 years since the Chiefs have been to the Super Bowl. We're so glad you came on today, Mike. So good to have you. Enjoy the week. I know it's going to be busy for you, but it is always a good time when you join Undisputed. Thank you again.
No mercy.
And our own Troy Aikman thinks the Cowboys nailed the Mike McCarthy hire. Aikman said that Dallas couldn't have hired a better coach for the job. Troy also said that a majority of coaches around the league would have traded their roster for the Cowboys' current players. So, Skip, since we're talking about the Cowboys, I got to start with you. Do you like what he had to say?
How about them Cowboys? My turn.
Okay.
I loved what Troy Aikman said yesterday about my Dallas Cowboys. And you know what I love most about Troy's Cowboy commentary? He does not bleed blue. He does not see the world through metallic blue-colored glasses. Troy Aikman has been scathingly critical of the Dallas Cowboys, and he lives in Dallas. And he is fearless in his criticism of both Dak Prescott, he's been scathing on Dak, and especially on Jerry Jones. He's called the operation dysfunctional. And I believe in Troy's heart of hearts right now, he still fears it will be dysfunctional
Absolutely.
going forward with this coach that he has blessed.
Yes.
But I did love the two things that Troy made a strong point of yesterday, and that's that, number one, you could not have hired a better coach than Mike McCarthy. Troy's long been a McCarthy fan. He does know him very well, but he believes in his methodology and the way he goes about his business. Obviously, Mike McCarthy is a made man. He won a Super Bowl, and for a long period of time, and obviously he had Aaron Rodgers, but he was pretty good at his job for 13 years. I know it tailed off at the end and it went south. But Troy's saying that guy can do this if given the opportunity to do this. And then number two, and this is why I picked the Cowboys going into the season to be right here in Miami. Troy said he talks to coaches every week, and he said you'd be hard-pressed to find a coach who wouldn't have traded his whole roster for the Dallas roster. Okay, so coach and great roster. So I'm going 2 + 2 = foregone conclusion. It was Jason Garrett's fault.
Oh, my goodness.
It was Jason Garrett's fault. So you got one of the best, if not the best roster in the league. And wait a second, it has to be somebody's fault that didn't flip the switch for that roster. So you needed a new commanding officer who's more commanding. So you go get Mike McCarthy, and I do think he's a little tougher and a little more impressive with a little stronger voice and a little bigger fear factor than Jason Garrett ever struck in that locker room. They love Jason Garrett. He was one of them. He was the backup quarterback. And he coached like a backup quarterback. That's who he was. He was classic 8-8. He was born with the nickname 8-8 Garrett. That's what his mom nicknamed him.
No, he didn't.
In the hospital.
I don't think so.
8-8. Sorry, you're 8-8. So they needed this voice to come in and take over a team that's still right on the verge. They all got a year older. But to his point about Dak, he was so critical of Dak a year ago. And he said last year Dak was night and day from what he was a year before. Okay, I'll take that to my bank. But Troy's bottom line, as always, was Mike can do this if he's given the opportunity to do this. Okay? Back to Jerry Jones. I do think if that opening press conference was any indication that Jerry's going to give him his way, give him a little bit of a leash anyway.
Yeah.
Skip. You get nervous?
The problem was never the roster. The problem is the problem wasn't the roster, but that roster think they can just take the field and just win ball games. You tell me that offensive line played like they got 3 Pro Bowlers on it. You tell me like week in and week out that Amari Cooper plays like he's one of the top receivers in all of football.
Nope.
You said Zeke runs like he's running in Cabo Sand.
Half the year he was.
And we talked about a guy that had a half a sack over the last 7 games, and he's talking about the mindset.
Yeah, DeMarcus Lawrence makes $100 million total dollars, and I couldn't find him a lot of times.
I just want to know which one of the guys that I just named, the offensive line, Zeke, Amari Cooper, or DeMarcus Lawrence, are they on that roster?
Yep.
Oh, okay, just making sure.
Was Jason Garrett not the head coach?
Whoa.
Who is supposed to light the fire? Light the fire.
Okay.
By the way, you were asking me questions.
No, you're not going to know. It's like a theoretical. That means you don't have to respond, but you know.
Oh, so I'll just sit over here and listen.
I really appreciate that. Now, Troy said that a lot of the coaches that he talked to, half of them would trade their roster for the Cowboy roster. I wonder how many of those coaches would trade their owners that doesn't meddle for Jerry Jones. Troy, when you get a chance, you ain't got to say that on there. Just pull your boy to the side, because I'm here all week. Pull me to the side and let me know that. I really appreciate that.
Can I have a turn?
Yeah, you go ahead.
I can have a turn.
Yeah, you go ahead.
You may respond.
The Hall of Famer is going to let me have a turn.
Go ahead.
You realize that the sort of the oldest saying about the National Football League, there are only like 5 or 6 owners who really care enough to spend the money to get here.
Yeah.
Jerry Jones is one of those guys.
Yes.
Now, unfortunately, Jerry wants to spend it
And
then
tell you how to, and tell you what you should buy with it.
That is correct. That is correct. But you do. There are more of those guys who would trade places with Jason Garrett or Mike McCarthy than you might think, because they'd say, yeah, Jerry will do anything to get me to the Super Bowl.
You know, I used to get when I was growing up, I used to hate my grandma give me $1 or $2. She said, boy, don't buy all candy. Well, why you give me the money? It's my money now. If I want to buy all candy, let me buy all candy.
If I know you bought all candy.
I did. Well, candy and cookies. But anyway, Skip, look. Everything's gonna go well. Things were going well when they started 3-0. Jenny, you remember how he come out here?
I remember.
He come out here strutting like a peacock in Florida.
It was hard to forget, actually.
He just walking through. How about my Cowboy?
Well, it wasn't just that. I mean, how about that first Sunday night game against Philadelphia?
Yeah.
That worked, didn't it?
No, but the first 3 weeks they were good.
Oh, no, but
Super Bowl.
How about 37-20 over the Eagles?
Yeah.
And you were scared.
I wasn't scared at all. And Steven and Jerry, this is the most talent I've seen around here since those Super Bowl days. Whoa! Like Skip Bayless tells me all the time, what if they won? When was the last time the Cowboys won a Super Bowl and we're crowning them? As the word of Denny Greens, if you want to crown them, crown them. But they are who we thought they were. 8-8. That's the Cowboys' middle name. 8-8. Skip this.
Doesn't get easier.
Skip, you know what's going to happen, Skip. You know. The moment when things are going good, Jerry's gonna be up there, chuffed, all puffed out. You're gonna be banging the table. How about your Cowboys? But lose a few games, and you're gonna be talking about, I sure wish I had old Jason Garrett back.
Oh, yeah. You will never hear me say that one time. Book it. I will never say that in the however much longer this show lasts or we last together.
No.
I will never say that again. I miss Jason Garrett. I do not. I will never miss Jason Garrett. He drove me nuts. He took years off my life. I told you I wanted him gone after 2012. I had to wait 7 years for him to get fired.
Dak took years off your life because you thought he was Patrick Mahomes, and he's not.
Listen, Dak Prescott had a ridiculously great year last year.
Empty
you give him
calories.
Empty calories, and you gave him F for almost every game he played.
Let me ask you a question. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, the first game of the playoffs, Patrick Mahomes fall behind by 24. They lose the game. Let's just say they lose the game 48-34. What are we saying?
You'd say empty calories.
Exactly. Right? So with Dak, fall behind by 28, falls behind by 24, 17. And you want to, look at Dak. Look at all the numbers he had. For what? For 8-8? We talking about 8-8. That's what we talking about.
Okay, so he fell behind at the Jets. What was it? Wait a second. 21-3. Where was Amari Cooper?
Whoa.
Standing on the sideline. Standing on the sideline. I can't go. I got a little nick. I got a little nick. Come on.
Okay.
I got a little nick.
Whoa. See, you see what you do?
I'm not doing anything. I'm just telling you the truth.
Anytime they don't win, instead of placing the blame on the quarterback like you do every other quarterback.
Okay, but think about this.
What?
Dak Prescott throws a 2-point conversion pass to tie the game to go to overtime, and it was obviously pass interference on Jason Witten. If it gets called and they go to overtime and win, then you can't say empty calories because he would have come back and won the game.
You know what? With the pop-up shop, you missed it yesterday. I had a pop-up shop, right?
Did?
Yeah, right over there.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm glad I missed that.
Yeah. And the thing was, nobody wanted QBR. Yeah. Nobody wanted almost winning. Yeah, nobody wanted that. They're like, Shannon, you got one of them old hot L's?
Yeah.
I like, the cowboy special in the back.
Yeah. My restaurant only serves dubs.
Well,
I'm a winner, and you serve losers. I don't know why.
Because, Skip, I wanted something that I could get the Cowboys to come. See, if I just served dubs, the Cowboys couldn't come. I put them hot L's on the menu 8 times they show up.
8-8 on the menu. Getting it done.
Yeah.
That is good to know.
Because you want to associate with America's team.
Yeah.
You want them to come to your restaurant because you know that will drive business to your restaurant.
They're great for business.
Yeah, they are great for business because they are the marquee team, and they should be here right now.
No, they shouldn't.
They belong in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. All you had to do was win one game in your last 3 weeks. And I told you, even when the Eagles lost to Miami, I told you, I say, Skip, the Cowboys will do Cowboys things, which is what they did.
Yeah.
Now,
my quarterback got hurt.
What they get hurt?
He did too. He shouldn't even played at Philadelphia.
So how was he looking at? I'm looking at Washington, the last game of the season. Remember, he threw for almost like 10,000 yards.
Boy, it was a gutsy performance.
Oh, gutsy performance. But I thought he was hurt. Why is he playing? He was hurt.
He sucks it up.
Yeah,
He's the leader. You saw what Troy said. He said, you won't find a better leader than Dak Prescott. Thank you.
Okay,
Bingo.
there you go.
Look, I'm not trying to lead no sheep in the battle, okay? Because that's what he got on his team. He got sheep.
Well, they had some this year. I give you that.
Oh, okay.
And maybe Mike McCarthy will change all that.
I sure hope so for your
wait
sake.
and see.
For your sake, I hope so.
Anything better than
Dougie P
Nate.
still the best coach in that division.
Okay, we do not have time to get into Dougie P as much as I'm enjoying this conversation.
No mercy.
Here he is, the one and only Snoop Dogg joining us.
We appreciate you being here. And before I ask my first question, I want people here and out there in our TV audience to know this man is a hardcore, long-time, till death do him part Laker fan. This is no Johnny-come-lately bandwagon jumper. This man goes on the road with his Los Angeles Lakers. When this man speaks Lakers, it comes straight from the bottom of his heart. Which brings us to what happened Sunday. You were on the road in Detroit when you heard the news. How did it hit you?
Still trying to process it. Dear friend of mine, loved his whole transformation, how he became great. You know, when he first got to LA, he wasn't great. He was a kid, and he was learning, and he was making mistakes, and I was a kid at the same time, so it was beautiful watching his story and watching mine, and watching him become a legend, and become a father, and become a mentor, and become a real leader. So it crushed my heart because I knew that he wasn't done. I just spoke with him at Puffy's 50th birthday party, and he was telling me about some of the things that he was working on and where his mind was as far as like being comfortable with retirement and just finding happiness with his daughters and finding that peace with being other than the basketball player. And that just crushed me because to see that, you know, it just hurt. I'm still hurt right now as we speak, Skip.
So you were okay that they postponed last night?
I was very okay with it because I felt like the player's spirit wasn't in the mood to compete. A lot of those guys really love Kobe, and he was instrumental in a lot of those guys, from the Clippers to the Lakers. You see how Doc reacted to it?
Oh.
You know, and those aren't fake reactions, that's real. That man meant a lot to us, whether we competed against him, whether we played for him, played with him. His spirit, just the dog in him, just being the mama, that created the spirit to attack because it got too friendly at a certain point. The game was too friendly, and he made it about competition. It's about winning. And that's what it's always been about with him.
And you've talked in the last couple of days to a number of the players, I know, yes. Lakers and Clippers.
Yes, I spoke with a lot of players because naturally they hit me because I'm like their uncle. I'm like Uncle Snoop. Yeah. So they calling me to make sure I'm all right, but then at the same time, they need advice, they need wisdom, they need guidance on how do we deal with this? And I really don't know what to say because I'm trying to deal with it, but at the same time, I gotta be strong and I gotta give them the information that I feel like Kobe would have gave them. He would say, keep pushing, keep going, because he was a dog. He was never a quitter, so he would want y'all to keep rolling.
Snoop, when we talked about this on Monday, I said it felt like a family member had passed. Because you watch a 17-year-old kid become a champion, become a husband, become a father, and then he transitioned after 20 years in the NBA, and he goes to a new phase of his life. And it seems that he was gonna be as successful in the new phase as he was in the old. And, you know, sometimes we just think, a guy like Kobe, we expect him to live forever. We expect him to be 85, 90, he gets old, goes to sleep one night, doesn't wake up. Guy, they're not supposed to die like this, Snoop. And I'm like you, when someone sent me, I was like, that ain't true. So I turned the TV on. Where the TV, there's nobody showing, there's no breaking news, because I'm saying, if something like this happens to Kobe Bryant, this is gonna be breaking news everywhere, not just sports.
Every game supposed to stop everything.
Yes, and then all of a sudden, you see it.
Right.
Scrolling across the bottom of the screen. I'm like, man, this is true? How? I mean, and I was telling, like, I had just texted him, and look, I met him at the Icon Awards. I didn't meet him for the first time, but he was talking to him. I was like, Kobe, bro, you seem so at peace. How, when you competed like you did? Because there are a lot of athletes, Snoop, you know, they have these struggle leaving the game because it's all they've done, this is all they know.
Right.
He's like, man, look, I gave it everything I had. The way I trained, the way I practiced, I got nothing. Now my focus is the creative side. I want to write stories. I want to tell stories. That's why I want to be a family. I just want to be my girl,
and
my
be
family.
a father.
Yes.
That was the most exciting part of me, seeing him show up to games and roll with his daughter and be the father.
Right.
When you become a father, that's the most beautiful gift you can get in this world, to be able to have that relationship with your kids.
Right.
It was, when he retired, I had him come to my spot in Inglewood because I wanted to give him a gift. A gift to me with my 6'4" Chevrolet. I gave it to him. I wanted him to have it. But when he came to see me, me and my son was in the studio and he was talking to my son, and the information that he was giving my son was it was like a teacher. And it was the same stuff that I had told my son, but he didn't hear me the way he heard him.
It's funny how that works.
It was so much confirmation.
Yes.
That I needed from Kobe to come in and mentor my son at that time, because he had made the decision not to play football and to try other things in life. And Kobe gave him the confirmation that whatever you do, just be great at what you do.
Right. And the thing is that he had that personality like Magic. Magic might meet you for the first time, but Magic Johnson makes you feel like he's known you 25 years. That's how Kobe was. I met Kobe in Denver, and I walk up to him, and I'm like, hey, man, let me get them shoes. He's like, you want? He gave me the shoes, signed them, and just started carrying on the conversation, yada, yada. It's like, bro, you just met me. It's just something about him. And like you said, I know Laker Nation is hurt, but even people that rooted against Kobe or rooted against his team broke down because you can't believe that this actually happened.
You know what it was? He was the type of athlete that even the enemies loved him.
Yes.
And that's hard to say, because when you compete and you don't really like the person that you're up against, but it was something about his drive that made the enemy respect his drive, because he never gave up and he always went at him.
Right.
And I'm just so hurt, but I'm so happy that his legacy will live on through people like us, and we putting shows together to keep his name and keep his spirit going in the righteous way. And I think the NBA should change that logo to him. I'm gonna speak on it because I felt like Michael Jordan logo was already out there on the shoes. His shoes is everywhere.
Yeah,
you can't deny
jump
that.
Man.
Yeah, and I think Jordan will concede and say, you know what? Let my little brother get that, because the players right now are more his peers and they look up to him more. Jordan is the generation before that. A lot of them didn't see Jordan like they seen Kobe. So I feel like that would be the proper gesture for the NBA to do, to go ahead and make it happen. Jerry West already given approval, so make it go.
Well, if you saw Jerry last night on TNT, he was just pouring his guts out on national TV because he did consider himself
Jerry found him in high school.
He found him.
So if you look, first of all, we have Vlade Divac. Let me tell you this.
He was an all-star, and he traded him.
Vlade and Magic was 1-2 punch. We was the whole thing with Vlade, and he traded Vlade for this kid out of high school. We was like, man, what is he doing? Yeah. What is he doing? Mm-hmm. But then when he came, remember, he was behind Eddie Jones, Van Exel, and all them, but he was different than them. Yeah. Whenever he would hit the court, it was like, man, he need to be in more.
And then Jerry said last night, I traded Eddie Jones, an all-star weight, because I knew that kid was ready to play.
Right. You hear what I just said? I'm a diehard. Eddie Jones and Van Exel, them, they was great. But he was just different, and he wasn't even great then. He was just, you could see his light was flickering. He didn't know how to turn it on, but it was flickering. And once he learned how to turn that light on, it wasn't gonna never come off.
Well, you remember that first season ended with that Utah loss and the closeout game?
So what? Yeah. That's how you develop your shot. You got to shoot it in order to get it right.
And then make it come full circle. The final game was against Utah, and he dropped 60.
And I'm in the crowd dancing with him. You understand me?
The mama mentality, and everybody understands what a black mama is. Very venomous snake. Yes. But that snake will attack without provocation.
Nothing.
You ain't got to step on him. You ain't got to bother his young.
Nothing.
He will chase you. It will chase you to bite. Kobe didn't need you to be an enemy to drop 50 on you. You would be his best friend, as Michael Jordan. He put 55 on him and say, take that with you to retirement.
But also, but not only that, like if a celebrity wanted to play against him. For example, Bow Wow wanted to play against him. My little homeboy, Bow Wow, like 5'8". So you think he gonna be nice to Bow Wow? He backing Bow Wow down, taking it to him hard, talking mess. Like he don't like to lose. And that's the mentality of the Mamba that I feel like it's gonna carry on. It's gonna make the league more stronger because the league is getting a little too friendly. Yeah. It's a lot of friendships, which is no problem with that. But when we competing, we're supposed to compete.
Right.
And that's what I like about the Clippers is that when they play the Lakers, they compete and they bring it to us. And I think the league should get more onto that page.
You see what's happening? You see guys that we don't expect. We see guys, Eric Gordon drop 50.
Yes.
We see Buddy Hield come off the bench, drop 42. Chris Middleton last night hit 51. You had Bradley Beal drop. You getting guys, something's going on here, Snoop.
Right.
Something that we've never, ever seen before because we've really never had an athlete kind of like Kobe. You know, we talked about it, Skip, Roberto Clemente, who was delivering aid to Nicaragua, or Dale Earnhardt, who died in a plane crash.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen anything like this. And like you said, Magic, Jordan was the idol of like guys like Kobe and LeBron.
Right.
The guys that are playing now, Kobe is their idol like Jordan was to them.
Yes.
So
it's facts. Don't say, It's facts. You better go do a heat check right now. Ask every player in the NBA, who did you want to be like growing up?
Yeah, Kobe. Because they would, a lot of these guys skip, some of these guys are one and done. Well, Kobe was 0 and done. He's straight from high school. And LeBron said that gave him the courage. Well, he did. I believe I could do that.
Right.
So we lost some iconic entertainers way too soon. I brought up Monday, Michael Jackson was gone at 50 and Prince was gone at 57. And if I can hark back to Elvis, he was gone at 42. But each of those icons, there was some self-destruction involved in their demise. This was just straight tragedy. Just shocking, can't happen tragedy. This is a man who almost flew helicopters for a living, it felt like he helicoptered everywhere he went.
He flew to come see me in a helicopter.
There you go.
By himself.
Whew.
And he said the reason was, Skip, they asked him why. He said what had happened was the traffic had started to get so bad that he was missing his daughter's recitals. He was missing things. He said, well, I still need to be true to my craft. So I still got to put that time in. I got to practice. I got to get the weight time in. But I also need to get back. So he's like, the only logical thing for me to do is to get above the fray. 15 minutes there, 15 minutes back, boom, I don't miss a thing.
Yeah, because that's a 3-hour drive in traffic. That's a 3-hour drive in traffic from where the stadium was to where he had to go. So that 15-minute commute was a beautiful situation for him.
Right, and then remember, they practicing in El Segundo.
Right.
So he swooping down there.
Because he was way down in
Newport
Beach,
yes.
Orange County.
Yeah. And what I want to say about the situation that you can never question God.
No.
And he don't make no mistakes. And it's not an accident. It's not something that wasn't supposed to be, it is. And as tragic as it is, we have to look at it and say, what do we learn from this? What do we get from this? And you can see people's spirits are changing based off of this. This one man is shifting the whole world based off of how he lived when he was in this world. So we just got to take that and pray for the family, pray for his wife, pray for his kids, and try to give them the strength to keep moving forward and just do what we're supposed to do as leaders in the world right now.
Because you know what it is, Skip? This happened to Kobe Bryant. You see, a lot of times we see death and it's like, oh, we don't really know. We're not connected to that. That happened to somebody that we feel we know on a personal level. If that can happen to him, so all the pettiness, man, the bickering back and forth, is it really that bad? Do I got a beef or a gripe with you that bad that I'm willing to, I don't know if I leave the home that I'm going to come back and tell you I'm sorry, that I love you, I miss you, I apologize to you?
Immediately, Shannon, let me tell you what I did. I called everybody that I love and I told them I loved them. And I started getting texts from my auntie, my mother, and I just put an Instagram out that hugs and I love you are in season. Hugs and I love you are in season. It's in season, so it's okay to hug somebody and tell them I love you, because it's been so much hate and so much negativity that we've been led to follow. Let's put some new energy out there. Let's take this tragic event and make something positive out of it and put love in the air.
Well said. Thank you. What is your early gut feeling on how this will inspire this year's Lakers going forward?
It's championship. And I say that for many reasons. I felt like that before this happened, but I just feel like the confirmation from LeBron passing Kobe and his daughter coming to see him at that game where he hugged him and he whispered something in his ear. Like, this is a connection that we in LA was waiting on Kobe to give us the approval to say that LeBron is okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
facts. Like, I've always loved LeBron and didn't have to wait for the approval, but the city of LA was waiting on Kobe to say, crown him, let him go. Let the king do what he do. And Kobe did that, and now it's on him to do what he do. LeBron know what the task is at hand. LeBron is a soldier. He's built for this. He's strong. He's got broad shoulders. He can take this, and I think he's going to rally the troops, and we're going to figure this thing out, and we're going to go to the mountaintop.
We all have a Kobe story. Everyone sitting in this room, really powerful to hear yours, Snoop. Thank you for sharing. And let's end on that while we go to break. Hugs and love are in season, because that's what I'm going to be thinking about.
No mercy.
And we are just lucky to have Snoop here on Undisputed. It is always a good day when you join us on set. It has been an emotional couple days, and I do want to talk about some football because we have a lot of questions for you.
So here we have a Super Bowl, and we have an offensive coordinator for the Chiefs who is a minority, and we have a defensive coordinator for the 49ers who is a minority. But we just went through a big hiring cycle in which a bunch of highly qualified head coaching candidates who happen to be African American got no jobs. Your thoughts on that?
The Rooney Rule was put in place for this situation right here, and it just was totally ignored this year. Eric Bieniemy, same class as me, 1989. We graduated the same year. I seen him in high school play as a football player. I seen him go to Colorado and ball, and I'm watching him as a great football mind work alongside with Andy Reid, and I feel like that was utter disrespect, because for him to uplift Patrick Mahomes in 2 years, because it's Andy and him. It ain't just one person doing it, it's a group thing. And you know, if you know anything about football, he needs him like he needs him. So for him to be not given the shot to even get an interview, that's total disrespect. I feel like some of these owners need to be checked, because that's where it starts. It starts from the owners from up top. And if their mentality isn't right, it's never going to be right with the Rooney Rule. And we got to fix all of that by getting them in order and making sure that this happens, that these people get these righteous interviews when they earn those interviews.
Or get a fair, because look, we saw Jerry Jones interview Marvin Lewis. We knew Marvin Lewis wasn't getting that job.
Right.
We got to start with this tokenism, though.
Right.
Just bringing the guy in, okay, we checked it off, okay, we brought him in, when you have no realistic hope of giving this guy a true crack at getting the job. Because if you look at the divisional, 4 of the 8 quarterbacks were African Americans. We got an African American in the Super Bowl. Gonna have an African American MVP with Lamar Jackson. So in other words, you're good enough to play. You're good enough to be an offensive coordinator or assistant, but no, we ain't gonna let you coach him now. And we got scared. Remember, we got 5 officials in the Super Bowl. Wow. We gave you 5 minorities in the Super Bowl, but I thought officials are supposed to be, now you don't even supposed to know they're there.
Right.
But you brought that to our attention, though. You want us to know that they're there.
That you're paying attention to that side of it more than you paying attention to the rule that was put in place.
Right.
This rule was put in place so that way minorities could get that first shot and get that equal opportunity, so that way you can look at their resumes and say, you know what, you do deserve a shot. Or, you know what, I'm not going to hire you because I feel like X, Y, and Z, but I gave you the proper interview. You're not even giving us interviews now. That ain't even cool, man. And these guys from college, they garbage. Some of them ain't even won in college, and then you're going to bring them up here to the NFL level and think that they're going to win? Like, I don't know who none of these guys is that was in college other than Urban Meyer, Nick Saban, Dabo Swinney. Like, if you ain't won it all, you ain't nothing. You ain't finna come up here and do nothing.
We got too many, like Joe Judges getting jobs where they come out of nowhere, out of the blue, and we haven't even heard of them. The head coach at Baylor gets a job and had done little to, I don't know.
Is it the copycat coaching league now? Because what we're doing now, when Sean McVay did his thing, the next move was, let's find us a young coach that's like him, and then that didn't work, and they were sorry this year. Then it's like, well, what are you looking for? Why don't you just give the best coach the opportunity to coach, regardless of what his background is or what his nationality is? If he's a qualified coach, give him the opportunity to coach. Like, for example, Mike Tomlin is a great coach. But if he wasn't given that opportunity, you would just look at him as a defensive coordinator or whatever his position was. But once he got that coaching spot and started to articulate and started to run his team and show you that he can win and do different things, then you have to look at that coach and say, well, wow, maybe we give another guy like that an opportunity, what could happen?
Like you did with the black quarterback.
Oh, wow.
You see, now they're showing, man, if we get a guy an opportunity, they're proving the validation. Look at Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes. Look at all these guys that are playing, like, wow, all they needed was an opportunity, a fair opportunity. Now, they're doing it. I think they should give some of these, for Eric Bieniemy not to get a head coaching job. And he's actually calling the plays, because Skip, for the longest time.
I'm looking at his mouth move.
For the longest time, what do they say? Yeah, he has the title of offensive coordinator, but Andy's calling the plays. Now he's calling the plays, Well, you know, we kind of like Joe Judge. Joe Judge was, not to say anything bad about it, especially because John Harbaugh started off that way.
He did.
But come on now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, speaking of your Pittsburgh Steelers.
Right.
There's a still young man who used to be a Steeler who's from right here in Miami named Antonio Brown. And he's had a rough ride of late. And yesterday he was freed from sort of home, or what do they call it, house arrest,
Yes.
I guess. And yet still got a rough road ahead of him. Your thoughts on where he's heading?
I told you last time he was on the show and y'all asked me. I said he needed to get some help.
You did.
Right.
I'm not going to bash him or talk bad about him, but when you're looking at somebody like that, that's great, and then you watch these types of things happen, help is what's necessary. He's crying out for help, but he don't know how to get it, and his team is not strong enough to get it for him.
Yeah.
That's what he needs. He needs some mental help. He needs somebody to sit down with him and talk to him and get his life in order and put everything back in perspective, because like you said earlier, when you're great and you have to make a transformation from not being great to figuring out what your second life is, that's when destruction could come in. He's not a rapper, a video guy, he's a football player, but he's trying so many different things right now, and people are encouraging him for the wrong reasons instead of saying, let's encourage this man to get some mental help, to see where he's at, to make sure he's okay, and then we'll see what the next move is.
It really is, Snoop. And the thing is that I'm a firm believer if you surround yourself with people that tell you what you need to know and not what you want to hear. You see the situation where he and the mother of his kids, and he's yelling those things, and you got his boys in the background, they co-signing it. I'm like, for real, bro? You do realize that's the mother of his kids. You do realize his kids are standing right there and they're listening. In one breath, he said, I love you. In the next breath, he's saying all these ugly things.
That's why I said help. He needs help. That sounds like help.
Yes.
That don't sound like somebody that's in their right mind. When you first had a dose of Antonio Brown, he was like, yeah, he's great. He's a diva, but he's okay. But then as time went on, he was like, hold on, something's wrong. Something is wrong, and it's getting out of control. And if we don't stop it, nobody's going to stop it. Because he feels it's acceptable now.
Snoop, what happened is that, and it happens in a lot of it's not the professional athlete is not the only, that it's a performance-based business.
Right.
The best programmers at Google gets the longest leash. And see, what happened with AB is that he started getting better and better, and the leash started getting longer and longer.
Right.
So instead of being 1 minute late for a meeting, he started showing up 5-10 minutes late. And then all of a sudden, he's like, forget the meeting.
It's okay, that's AB. It's
He's all of a sudden, he was late for practice for a little bit, then after a while, he said, forget practice. And he's like, well, you going to play? You see, when you let that kind of behavior, because AB is he's the type of guy, Skip, he's not a guy that can rein himself in.
Right.
You have to rein him in. Basically, Antonio Brown is a car. He's taking all the wheels off the car and wondering why he can't get anywhere. Because you've sabotaged your own ability to ride.
Yes, sir.
So now, he's looking at everybody else. It's everybody else's fault.
Yep. Back to the Steelers. Ben Roethlisberger says he will be back next year. I saw good to great things from your young coming-of-age defense. What are your hopes for next year with your Steelers?
My hopes is that Ben is physically together, because when he is physically together, we tend to win.
You do.
And I think that the team is more structured now that we got a lot of that madness out of the locker room. The defense stepped up and showed that they really want to play.
Yep.
We got to get some better receivers. I'm not even going to sit up here in front. Y'all missed the ball too much, and it is what it is. It is what it is, because they was putting it there and y'all wasn't making them catches. And I just feel like if Ben comes back, we got a good shot, because I don't know if Brady going to be in New England. And that's the only thing that we can't beat is the Patriots.
And speaking of Tom Brady, what do you want to see for him? There's a lot of talk about Los Angeles Chargers, some Raiders talk, right?
Actually, what I want to see is the Patriots treat him like the king that he is. Like, why would you let him go away when he did all this for your organization? Like, and why would y'all play with him like that, knowing that he meant so much to your organization? But this is a business, so I get it. And I get it. And if they do him like that, because they did Montana like that, I've seen them do some of the greats like that.
Smith like that.
I seen
Bruce Smith like that.
I seen them do some greats like that where they sent them. Yeah. Like, be gone.
But here's the thing, Snoop. You can understand this. Okay, you with a record company, and they've been giving you peanuts all this time. And you had #1 album after #1 album and Grammy and #1 album. And all of a sudden you say, you know what, I want to redo this deal, but I want y'all to give me what old Drizzy Drake be getting. They're like, whoa, wait a minute now. All the other years we've been giving you chicken feed, you ain't have a problem with it.
Right.
But you on the way out. You see, He's taking less money all this time.
I watched him take less money to build a team. I used to be like, why is Tom Brady not the highest paid quarterback? Every year they used to show some weak quarterback getting this big old money and couldn't do nothing, and Tom would be like number 6 or number 7, but he would make sure that the money was evenly distributed on the team so that way the team could be good. So that's why I felt like they should give him the same love back the way that the Lakers did with Kobe. When Kobe got to the end of his career, we knew he wasn't what he was, but they gave him the money to say, you understand me? We're going to break the bank behind you because we don't want you to go nowhere. We love what you gave to us, and that's what they should do to him.
They don't think like that. NFL is not like this. They're not like
especially the NFL.
NFL's not like this.
How would Los Angeles take to Tom Brady, Chargers quarterback?
You saying the Rams or the Chargers?
The Chargers.
The Rams
you want to go Rams?
I'm just saying.
Okay. You can go Rams.
I'm just saying 3 points in the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
You just gave Jared Goff all that money. You gave him $112 million.
But what has he done? The coach is in his ear for 26 seconds. Like,
that's true.
Come on, man. Like, I can do better than that. If the coach tells me, all right, Snoop, look to the left. Okay, just do it. Okay, now throw the ball to the right. Are you serious?
But that's the problem that Brady's up against. He's taking money. He's taking less money basically for 20 years.
The Chargers ain't a bad look for him.
No.
Because their defense, let me say this, their defense is real.
Right.
When 33 get back there and 5-4 and all them get to going, they real.
Yeah.
And then on the offensive side, them receivers is dogs.
Yeah.
They got some dogs at receivers and the running back. If they treat Melvin Gordon right, that may be a good fit for Tom, and he could be right down the street from me.
There you have it.
Two-step Tommy, come on home, baby.
I like that. I think that works. There's a competitiveness in Tom. He wants to do it without Belichick. That's what I think. He wants to prove that he wants to do it.
You want to break up?
He wants to prove.
Coach Belichick definitely want to break up.
Are you serious?
Oh, absolutely.
But see, we can't read that as regular fans at home. We think it's beautiful.
No.
There's some
Because
under
when you
the
have this
surface
kind of
drama.
success, I need someone to say, I'm most responsible.
Are you serious?
When it was Coach Walsh and Joe Montana, we didn't really know who it was. But then Coach Walsh retired and Joe went and got one without him. So who was the driving force?
See, I didn't think about it like that. I didn't think about the business side. I just think about the game.
No, I need the credit. What broke up Shaq and Kobe?
The credit.
Yeah, so I need to get that. See, Michael didn't have that problem. You knew it was Michael.
Yeah, Scotty knew his role.
Yes. Coach Belichick said, y'all don't want to give me no credit, but I was going to take Jimmy G. Win me a Super.
That was his boy.
They were going to take me Jimmy G.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Jimmy G.
Ooh, and he playing in the ball.
Yeah, you got it.
Oh, wow.
No mercy.
So here's the thing, guys. Dee Ford infamously jumped off sides on what would have been a game-clinching interception for Kansas City in the AFC Championship last year. Well, the Chiefs then traded him to San Francisco in March and brought Frank Clark in as a replacement. Well, Clark threw some serious shade at Ford yesterday for his, quote, dumb penalty and added that he's, quote, not really too fond of Ford. So, Shannon, in your opinion, was this inbounds or out of bounds for Frank Clark to say?
I think it was out of bounds, and I think it was unnecessary. Skip, everybody in Dee Ford knows. I mean, he said, yeah, it's inexcusable. But Frank Clark's never jumped off sides. He's never had an unnecessary roughness penalty. All penalties are unnecessary. But to pile on like that because you got a person, okay, if you don't like Dee Ford, I get it. But at this juncture, what did you hope to accomplish? What were you saying? Yes, he knows it was a dumb penalty. Yes, but all D linemen try to treat the line of scrimmage, Skip, because I'm trying to get as close to the quarterback as I possibly can. So I'm going to cheat the line of scrimmage. And sometimes you jump off sides. Sometimes you line up off sides. Sometimes you get an unnecessary roughness on the quarterback hit. It happens. I just don't understand what he was hoping. Look, am I surprised that he said it? No, because we remember 2 weeks ago what he said about Derrick Henry. So I'm not surprised. But I just think it's unnecessary at this point in time. You'll get your opportunity. Just make sure now you don't do anything dumb, Frank Clark. Just make sure.
So it sounds to me like Frank Clark is trying to win the Shannon Sharpe Memorial Biggest Talker at the Super Bowl award, right? Biggest talker at the Super Bowl so far has been Frank Clark.
Right.
Because he's been the biggest talker throughout the playoffs.
Right.
And to reiterate what he said about Derrick Henry, right before the AFC Championship game, he said there's no difficulty in tackling Derrick Henry, who had run roughshod over this league for, 4 games?
Yes.
Like we'd never seen before. And he said he's just easy to tackle. In fact, he should be running harder at his weight than he runs. This is on the eve of the biggest game they'd all ever played in, right?
Yep.
And I guess you could say he backed it up. He did have 1 solo tackle in the game, 3 assisted. He did have a sack. He did have a tackle for loss. He did hit the quarterback 1 time. Not a bad game. Maybe not a dominating game. I don't really remember Frank Clark making big plays in that game.
Right.
But after the game, I do remember him standing on top of the bench screaming to any camera that would pick him up, "We're the greatest defense in the world." I think the 49ers might take some issue with that. Wouldn't you think?
You are the best defense in the playoffs. Everybody knows the 49ers defense is better than Kansas City.
Okay.
Kansas City's best defense is their offense, and Patrick Mahomes and that high-flying offense putting up a lot of points on the board. Your best defense in the world doesn't give up 41 points in the first half. That doesn't happen. You won the ball game, but I just don't see the necessity in him saying, "Oh, it's inexcusable." Like he's never ever made a mistake on the football field.
He did acknowledge that, but he also took the biggest shot so far this week at the guy who used to be on his team, except he wasn't on the team last year.
Right.
So he doesn't know D Ford, and he made the point, I don't even know where he went to school. I don't know anything about him. But
So why are you talking about it?
He made it clear he just doesn't like anything about him. And it was a crucial penalty. You can say it was a dumb penalty.
Right.
But that gets you where this week?
Right. I don't know what it accomplishes for him, okay?
Okay, I have seen this in the past, going back to the 90s Dallas Cowboys. Both Jimmy Johnson and Nate Newton used to what I would call write checks that the team had to cash.
Right.
Jimmy famously or infamously called into a radio show the Friday night before the NFC Championship game and guaranteed a victory, which became a bold headline on the front page of the Dallas Morning News. That's a check that the team has to cash.
Right.
But that team was just better than the 49ers were, and they knew they were better.
Right.
So Jimmy just said, I'm going to light a fire that's going to rage all the way into that game.
Right.
Nate Newton used to do that, where he would make bold statements before the game because he knew they were way better than Buffalo in the Super Bowl.
Correct.
Okay? I got to tell you, I got news for Frank Clark. Your team is not way better than the 49ers.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We're going to find out. We're going to find out just how good Frank Clark is.
Sure.
Not just by rushing the passer, Skip. We're going to see can he hunker it down. Because he's sitting in there and take on them blocks. Because they're coming. They're going to run the football, Frank Clark. You're going to get 40 opportunities at tackles. And we're going to see how many you actually make. Because the 49ers will run the football. I promise you that.
They did do a great job, the Chiefs did, of setting the edge against Derrick Henry. They did not let him get wide. They would channel and funnel him back into traffic.
Right.
The 49ers, they come at you so much faster.
But here's the thing, Skip. We know one thing. We know 2 things were going to happen. They were going to hand it to Derrick Henry. They were going to toss it to Derrick Henry. And he was going to be 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Kyle Shanahan is going to dial up so many different plays, so many different ways to run the football. It's going to be Breda. It's going to be Mostert. It's going to be Deebo Samuel. It's going to be Emmanuel Sanders. 4 or 5 different guys will touch the football in the run game.
And sometimes they have 4 or 5 guys in motion.
Exactly.
Right? Because it's bells and whistles everywhere.
How many other people carried the football, running backs carried the football in the playoffs other than Derrick Henry for the Titans? Deion Lewis, I think, got 1 carry.
Okay. So, once again, we're back to pressure mounting on Patrick Mahomes, and I told you to start this show, I'm starting to feel sorry for him.
Yes.
Because this won't help the pressure. This does not help Patrick Mahomes' case this week.
How we know Patrick Mahomes ain't tell him to go out there and say that?
Well, did he?
Me matter.
Well, is that do you have inside information?
My homeboy, Skip. My homeboy cool, Skip. He could just do things we just never seen before.
Your homeboy is no longer at home. This is no longer the Texans or the Titans at home.
What about New England?
What about it?
Because I'm sure Andy Reid, let me tell you what Mike Shanahan told us when we played the Super Bowl Green Bay. He said, you went on the road and you beat Pittsburgh in 3 Rivers. He said, you went on the road and beat Kansas City in Arrowhead. Would you have rather faced those teams in their building or play Green Bay on a neutral site? You know what Andy Reid said? You went to New England on a cold Sunday night and you put foots in them. Would you rather face New England in their place or play San Francisco in a warm Miami?
Are you going to bring those same referees to Miami? If you can bring the same referees at the Patriot game, you got a real shot because they gave Kansas City 3 of the biggest breaks you'll ever get in a football game.
Mahomes, I don't need no breaks. I just need Tyreek to get deep. Yep. I'm taking over too. The longest play is like 45 and a half.
Yep.
I'm going over.
I'm going under.
I'm going over.
How many cases you want on that?
Let's do it right
I'm
here.
putting real money on mine. I don't know about no cases. Yeah, I got real money on this. Yeah. Real money.
Let me amend that to how many bands do you want to put on that?
I'm put my Fox bet money. I'm going to prop bet. I'm going to touchdown going to happen over 45 yards.
I got
Good
under.
with that?
Yes, it's
Okay.
I'm way under.
Guys, all of you were witness to that. So everyone,
It doesn't have to be for Kansas City now. You do understand that, right?
I got it.
Okay.
I got it.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
I love when we bet around here. It just makes my job so much more fun. Bill O'Brien has been calling the plays for the Texans since 2014, and now he gets to call the shots on who gets to play for the team. After the team announced yesterday that O'Brien will add general manager on top of his head coaching responsibilities. First on the agenda, Deshaun Watson, who's expected to receive a big new contract this offseason. So Shannon, is this a good thing or a bad thing for Watson?
Skip, if this is the truth, he's going to be the head coach and the general manager. There'll be only 2 guys that have this role, Bill Belichick and Bill O'Brien. Now, Bill O'Brien doesn't strike me much as Bill Belichick because Bill Belichick's resume speaks for itself. And when we get back and we dig really deep, it's not Coach Belichick has the best track record of drafting players.
He does not.
So, I think the best thing that he can do if he's the general manager now, he can go ahead and get this deal done with Deshaun Watson. Because you don't want Patrick Mahomes to go ahead and set a precedent, and then all of a sudden, because it's going to pull the price up. Now, he's going to get a handsome. I believe he's going to leapfrog Jared Goff. He's going to leapfrog Carson Wentz. Skip, I haven't seen enough of Bill O'Brien to say, you know what? Yeah, I think he's earned the right to, to do all the shopping, do all the cooking. So I don't know if this is the greatest of deals for Deshaun Watson.
This was the worst Deshaun Watson news I've heard in all the time I've loved him.
Wow.
This is such a bad direction for Deshaun's franchise to go because, I'm a huge fan of his. And he won me over in those 2 games against Alabama in the national championship game. Could have won both of them, did win the second one with the last-second pass to Hunter Renfrow. Put up monster numbers against arguably the best defense in college football. Huge clutch gene. And a lot of times it just depends where you land in pro football.
Correct.
So in this case, in the same draft as Patrick Mahomes, if you switch their roles, if Deshaun lands with Andy Reid and those weapons in Kansas City, I believe he would be as successful as Patrick Mahomes, doing it a little differently.
Okay.
He's a little better runner. He's not quite the thrower that Patrick is. Okay. But he's a pretty good thrower with a pretty big arm.
Yes.
So now all of a sudden you're stuck with Bill O'Brien, as Jenny said, calling plays and calling shots. I've been around Bill. I like him personally. I don't love him as a head coach or certainly as a general manager. So this is really bad news for Deshaun.
Skip, that's a lot of responsibility.
There it is. That is it for us.
Thanks for listening to the Undisputed Podcast. I'm Jenny Taft. Join us again at the same time tomorrow morning, 9:30 Eastern. We'll see you then.
Fox Sports, one of one.